Yesterday, I made a video about the Blue Jackets coaching search and how it was getting a little strange that there wasn't necessarily a clear number one candidate that the Blue Jackets were necessarily zeroing in on for their head coaching job. Reports did say that there were candidates that were more likely than others, but there was no true number one guy for that gig. And I also mentioned how all seemed quiet on the Mike Babcock front and how ever since it was first reported that he was interviewed, it seemed to have been put on the back burner from the public eye. And earlier this morning, both of those things changed, and it was first reported by Darren Dreger as kind of a speculation that it was Mike Babcock who the Jackets are expected to hire at the end of the month once his contract runs out with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, I guess he is still under that contract until June 30th, or until after June 30th, I should say. And when that tweet first came out, I did hesitate to jump to conclusions based on that, because Dreger did make sure to mention that this was speculation. He was hearing it from a few sources, but it seemed like while he was hearing a lot of smoke, he couldn't really identify the fire to that smoke. But then Sportsnet reports it, and that does seem like it adds a bit of legitimacy, because Sportsnet does have ties to the Maple Leafs. Babcock is under contract with the Maple Leafs, so if there was any media outlet that would have some kind of true insider knowledge before the rest of us that there might be some movement on the Mike Babcock front, it was going to be Sportsnet more than likely. And as of recording this, it is Pierre LeBrun who was the last reporter to jump on this train, and he did kind of add on to it a little bit, saying that Mike Babcock has been the guy for Jarmo for some time now. At least that's how he phrased it in his tweet. Something that I didn't mention in my video I made a few weeks ago, when Babcock, it was first reported that he was interviewed with the Blue Jackets. I stayed away from the stories about both Mitch Marner and Johan Franzen, not because I don't think they're important to this decision and what it could mean for the Blue Jackets, but also because it does kind of entail, there's accusations of abuse going on there. I don't want to heap abuse on my audience if I don't have to, if it isn't, if Mike Babcock isn't reported to be certainly going to be hired or anything, I don't want to just push that on my viewers. And also because I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not an authority on abuse. I'm not a survivor of any kind of abuse in any way. So I do feel I try to stay out of that wheelhouse if possible. But now that this does seem to be more of it seems more likely than not that Mike Babcock will be the coach. I do think it is important to touch on a little bit where, I have a story with Mitch Marner where he apparently asked him as a rookie to rank the veterans in terms of work ethic, and then he goes around and shows that to the rest of the team when that was supposed to be a private list. Now, he did say he apologized to Mitch Marner for that event, but it's still kind of a shitty thing to do if that is reported as true that happened. And then there's obviously the probably debatably worse Johan Franzen incident when he was coaching with the Red Wings, where Franzen was dealing with some concussion things, and Babcock was just repeatedly verbally assaulting this guy, and apparently Chris Chelios said it resulted in a mental breakdown during a playoff series in Nashville. And Babcock did a sit down with Sportsnet in 2021. I did want to watch this to kind of get his side of things, because I did want to take some of what he had to say about these events into account, where he claimed that the Mitch Marner incident was more of an accident of happenstance, where he asked Mitch Marner to rank himself among the veterans to try to motivate him, I guess, and he left that list on his desk kind of out in the open. A veteran player came in to meet with him, and the veteran player saw the list, and then it sprouted from there. That's Babcock's side of the story on that. And with they did address the Johan Franzen incident as well, and Mike Babcock essentially said that he didn't know that it was that bad, and they thought they had a good relationship with each other, and that Mike Babcock reached out to Johan. He was asked if he apologized, and he did clarify that he did not apologize, but he just simply reached out to Johan, and he did not get back with him. So who know, that thing to me is still kind of up in the air, and neither of those incidents, even with the context that Mike Babcock gives in a media appearance that he totally was getting ready for. It wasn't like they caught him out of the blue, and it was also edited. The interview wasn't even in person, it was over video, so that could have been a factor as well. Those media things, I still think those incidents still kind of put a negative light on Mike Babcock, and that's not even getting into some of the on-ice concerns that I have about this hiring, where the last time that we saw Babcock coaching in this league, he got fired for not really connecting with this young core in Toronto that was more talented than this Blue Jackets core is. While I am encouraged by what I've seen so far, I do think the young core that Toronto had with Babcock there is a little bit more talented than what, or at least they produced a lot more tangible results than what we've seen in Columbus so far. With that, he failed to connect there, and he got fired with a whole lot of time and money left on that deal. Like I said, he's still on that contract until June 30th. So who knows how this plays out. I do feel like this is a bit of Jarmo knowing that he doesn't have opportunity to fail again, so that could be part of a desperation move. He feels like he has to go big or go home, and Mike Babcock is, I guess, that hire for him, where I guess if he figures, well, if the coach doesn't work out, I'm going to get fired anyway, I might as well swing for a guy who, if he works out, I'm going to look like a real a genius. Where there were trepidations about Torts coming in, even though I do think Torts and Babcock are two very different situations. They are two very different coaches, even though they both kind of fall into the hard-nosed old guy kind of prototype. But it is a question of whether or not Mike Babcock will connect with this core. Johnny Gaudreau obviously did have success with Daryl Sutter, but who knows if Johnny Gaudreau is going to be encouraged by Mike Babcock coming in. Patrick Laine, when he was coached with Torts, that was a terrible year for him in Columbus. Again, they're not the same coach, but with the hard-nosed old guy prototype, Patrick Laine didn't really seem to respond all that well to Torts when he was in Columbus. This might change, and also this is unclear on how guys like Kirill Marchenko or Kent Johnson, how they'll respond to him. But something that was advertised with this coaching search for the Blue Jackets is that they have been taking in player input. Zach Werenski was saying that they certainly feel a lot more heard out this time around than they did the last time around. So maybe the players are a little bit more into this idea than we might think they are. But again, I don't think Jarmo Kekalainen is going to shy away from a coaching hire because the players might get their feelings hurt by the hire. That doesn't seem like Jarmo's wheelhouse. I feel like Jarmo is willing to, even with some input from the players, kind of go against the grain of even what they might want or expect. I'm not sure how this is going to work. It's definitely not necessarily encouraging, I will say. Of all the head coaching candidates that were out there, I would have put Mike Babcock pretty low on the list of faces I want to see in, especially he's been out of the game for a while. I do understand that he's been at least publicly stating some of the importance of saying mental health and when you cross the line, owning it. But I guess I'll believe it when I see it. I'm going to need some proof from Mike Babcock that he actually has learned and grown in that sort of sense, where even if you own it, but you just resort back to crossing the line over and over again and doing the same things that you've always done that have got you in these bad situations with other players, whether or not, even if you own it and go right back to doing it, that's not actual change. That's not actual growth. That's just saying, yeah, well, I did that thing. Well, I guess I'm gonna do it again. That doesn't change anything about the kind of behavior. Just because you acknowledge that a behavior is bad, but if you keep going back to doing it, that doesn't make it not bad behavior. But again, on ice, I'm very unconvinced that this will work. But I guess we weren't convinced when Torts was hired either, and that ended up turning out a lot better than expected. So I'm not going to say it's impossible that Mike Babcock succeeds here, but I will say I do think it is a lot more unlikely than some of the other candidates that we've seen here mentioned. Again, I was really excited about the idea of maybe Patrick Waugh coming in. I don't think Pascal Vincent would have been as bad as some Blue Jackets fans who think that there's no way you can hire internally. I do think Pascal Vincent would have been much more of a better candidate than Lars was a couple of years ago. But right now, all the reporting seems to indicate that right now it is Mike Babcock for the job. We'll see how that impacts things, and as far as development and the young core down the road. But as for right now, it's still technically not official, but right now it's looking about as official as you can get without actually being official. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into it, let me know what you think about this hiring down in the comments section below. I'm sure it's going to be a divisive one, and I'll see you at the next video.